It's about the perfect wind right now. It's November 15th, and Brody and I are in the open gate stand this morning. Greg and myself hunted here, it's been over a week ago now. I don't remember the exact day. But we had a pretty good sit. Actually saw a shooter buck about 9 o'clock from the tree that morning, but he came in and he smelled us. And most of the time, you don't want to hunt this on a northwest wind, which is what we had today. In fact, last time we sat here, 4 out of the 5 deer that we saw came straight from the southeast, which is right where our wind is blowing right now. However, Sean sat here several times last year, and I sat here earlier in November, obviously, and every mature buck we've seen out of this stand the last 2 seasons has came from the north. Should be a good morning. I had a camera running down here over this trail straight to the south of the stand for about 2 months earlier this year, and when Greg and I were in here last, we pulled it. And we had a giant 9-pointer on there that I've known about for several years. Sean and I saw him out of this general area last year on the 6th and 7th of November. He was huge then, and he's huge now. I had a few daylight pictures of him. In fact, right around the end of October, I know this is the area that he lives. But I don't really get too wrapped up about hunting specific deer. I like going on adventure hunts and trying different areas and that sort of thing, so I haven't been in here necessarily hunting him. And there's several other bucks in the area that I'd shoot as well, but it would be really sweet to see that thing because he's huge. Yep.
You've got me recording now.
Yep.
So record.
Oh man. Stay on him, Brody.
Yep.
It's just going back up in the bedding. See him?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Oh man. That was him. That was that giant 9-pointer that I was talking about in my opening interview right there. It's almost 11 o'clock. He must have caught a whiff of us or something. I've just been so nervous about this wind in this spot. It's a great area. It's just so tricky to hunt. So tricky to hunt. Oh man, I was at full draw on him. And he had to take about 5 or 6 more steps to hit my opening. Monstrous deer. Giant deer That deer's at least 5 or 6 years old. I've got pictures of him for 3 or 4 seasons now. This particular unit that we're hunting in gets pressured very heavily. And this is one little back corner. It's not very big. It's maybe this little draw that we're in right here is, 40, 50 yards wide at the bottom, and it goes down into some thicker bedding. That just goes to show you right there what a heavily pressured public land buck like that will do. When he encounters even the slightest whiff of human scent, he's gone. He's out of there. And I didn't think that, I've been dropping milkweed and it's been floating down here in this little valley behind my shoulder here all morning. And when I saw him coming up right there, I was like, okay, we're in good shape. But instead of turning and coming up the trail right here, he actually turned to veer around and go back up into the bedding. Oh man, he was at 30 yards. I come to full draw. He's going through that thick stuff. And I thought we were getting ready to kill him. I thought he was going to come right up here to us. He went to his right instead of going to his left and taking this trail right up here in front of the stand. Look at me. I'm shaking like a leaf. Oh, dang it. The struggles continue. For me this year, anyway. That's still really cool to see him. I told Brody when we got in here this morning that it would just be a privilege to see that buck. He's probably 6 years old, and he's been living on one of the most heavily pressured pieces of public land that I hunt. And that thing's still alive. He's not been shot yet. He's probably been shot at, but that's why he's still alive right there. Seeing that thing come through there like that.
I'm shaking right now.
As soon as Brody and I were getting ready to do an interview, and we talk about blue jays all the time. And this is something that my Uncle David taught me when I was a little kid. I actually heard him say something about it when he took my cousin Brandon and I hunting. We heard a bunch of blue jays fussing in a cedar thicket across from us. This is 20 years ago. And my uncle said, "Get ready, boys, there's deer getting ready to come out." And sure enough, 2 does and a fawn came out a few minutes later. And ever since then, I remembered that. And I'll tell you right now, when you hear blue jays fussing in the woods, most of the time they're fussing at a deer. And in this instance, I just sat down to do an interview. It's about 11 a.m. and Brody and I heard blue jays right down the draw right here. And I was like, "Be watching that way, Brody, while I'm getting my stuff ready here, because there's probably a deer in that draw." Sure enough, it was the biggest buck on the whole property in that draw, Brody. I still have no idea how he got us. I have no idea.
Because, that wind's blowing back.
The only thing I can think of, though,
Hitting
is
that
that it's
creek.
going up and it's tumbling back through there somehow. He hit a brick wall.
Yeah, for sure.
And he turned around. I don't know if he was catching our ground scent over there. I can't imagine that was it.
He hit it, and you knew he hit it when he did it.
I'm feeling it at my back a little bit right now. I'm going to end up using this whole pod trying to figure this out.
I don't even remember if a gust of wind came up at that time or if it was calm.
What I'm worried about, though, is that with this wind, it's actually dumping into this bottom, and once it's getting down in there 30, 40 yards, it's wanting to kick around and swirl.
Because that buck was over there too earlier, wasn't he?
See, there's no way he could have smelled us at this spot.
No.
He definitely smelled us, is what
Coming
I think.
from somewhere else.
Right, but it could have been coming from down in there, And that's probably why he's moving the way that he is.
Mm-hmm.
Is because down there he can smell everything up and around him. I'm going to tell you something right now. These big, old, ancient, mature bucks on public, it's the middle of the rut. And we just got done talking about it on a podcast last night. They just do not get up and move long distances. This deer has been living here in this little ditch all season long.
His whole life, probably.
Yeah, I mean his whole life, basically. I mean, we saw him in here 2 different days last year. I've got daylight pictures of him, and now I've seen him right there. And we just about killed him. Look at that. Oh yeah, see it pulling down? Yeah. There, it's pulling down. It's pulling right down to him. And that must have happened right there when he was moving. Well, Brody and I are just now making it back up here to the car. Just wanted to kind of recap what happened. I was pretty excited in the tree a while ago after that buck came in and eventually moved off. It's interesting to see a buck that's that old. I think he's at least 6 years old, and he lives and, you know, moves every day around on this public land, and they're just such a hard critter to get close to when they're living in these types of areas, as you can tell. Brody said it best a while ago when we climbed out of the tree. He said, you know, those old mature bucks on public land, they have to be right 100% of the time or they die. You know, and that buck was right this morning. He was moving up through that draw for a reason, and with the way the wind was blowing, I thought it was perfect, and most of the morning it was, but when it died, it actually swirled back down and through that draw. And the way that buck was moving up through it, he could smell almost everything out in front of him, and that's how we got busted right there. It's always been a tough spot to hunt, but it also is a great lesson in how habitual these mature bucks are. Sean and I saw him in there 2 different days last year, maybe 60 yards away from that tree that we were hunting this morning, and he was using that very same ditch that he was traveling up this morning. I had a trail camera in there earlier this fall. He was the only mature buck I had on there. I mean, I might have only had 1 or 2 other bucks on there, period. There's hardly any buck sign in there. There's a small rub here, you know, maybe a little scrape on the edge of the field. It's just the one area of this entire public piece where nobody ever goes. No human scent is ever in there. He didn't seem to spook real bad. He looked like he definitely hit our wind, something that alarmed him, and he turned around and he went back into the bedding area that he was coming out of, but he just walked back up in there. And I would assume that he encounters that situation many times out here because of all the hunting pressure. So I bet you that he's in that draw. Like, he's probably just moved a few 100 yards away, but if we expect to kill that deer this season, we're not going to do it out of that tree. So may come back in and hunt him one more time. I definitely know where that buck is living at in there, and most folks would probably go in there and hunt it and hunt it and hunt it, but I may try to put together a strategy with the guys and go in after him 1 or 2 more times. But if that doesn't work, then, you know, he wins for the rut anyway, because I'm not going to spend, I only have probably 7 or 8 more days of hunting left in November with family obligations and stuff around Thanksgiving, and I definitely would like to fill my tag, and that deer is going to be super tough to get close to, but we may give him a shot one more time. I know that he's living in that little draw, and if we get perfect conditions to come around the back door and hunt the opposite side of the draw from where we were at today, we may try it. But very interesting to see that deer. Super old buck, just an absolute giant buck, you know, one that you see once in a lifetime, but very cool. We'll get back to the office and regroup with the guys and try to hit it again soon.